How a spyware app compromised Assad's army. An investigation reveals how a cyber attack exploited soldiers' vulnerabilities and may have changed the course of the Syrian conflict. So, we have the Syrian army here. They attempted to attack, I believe it's Aleppo, I think it says here, yeah, Aleppo in December. It culminated in the collapse of the regime of Bashar al-Assad, which defies explanation. The opposition's military strength and its use of drones were contributing factors, but they were hardly enough. The Syrian army had previously reclaimed vast swaths of territory from rebel forces. By the summer of 2024, Assad's government controlled 2/3 of the country. The sudden unraveling and the conventional explanations behind it belie what unfolded beneath the surface of the military event itself. Let's zoom in here. In a previous interview with New Lines, a high-ranking Syrian officer who recounted the final days of the regime's existence disclosed a revealing detail that I decided to spend some time pursuing. A closer examination revealed it to be the key to understanding the regime's collapse from a different angle, not merely as logistical or battlefield, but as the result of a silent, invisible war. So what happened here? Syria underwent a cyber attack. They were the victims of a cyber attack. And the way that they were attacked, in particular, was very insightful. In February 2020, a mobile phone left behind by a Syrian soldier inside a Russian-made Panzer S-1 air defense vehicle helped to turn the entire system into a fireball. Israeli forces tracked the phone signal, pinpointed the battery's location, and launched a swift airstrike that obliterated the system before it could be rearmed. The incident, revealed by Valery Slugin, the chief designer behind the Panzer system, in an interview with the Russian news agency TASS, showed how a single mobile phone could trigger catastrophe, whether by design or by sheer ignorance. The consequences were devastating. Critical equipment and personnel were lost at a moment when the army could least afford it. The soldier responsible, a survivor of the Israeli strike, may have been an informant or a recruited agent, or more likely had no grasp of the damage he had caused. According to Slugin, all communication devices such as phones or radios should have been shut off, and the battery location would have been essentially inert at that point. This would have been standard operating procedure. But because this soldier, for one reason or another, did not follow procedure, it opened them up to a strike. Suddenly, after November 27th and the fall of Aleppo to the opposition, the Syrian army ceased to fight. Most units simply watched as opposition forces advanced, offering little more than sporadic resistance until the rebels reached the outskirts of Damascus. On the morning of December 8th, in the rural areas of Idlib and Aleppo, opposition factions swept past dozens of positions belonging to brigades of the 25th and 30th Divisions, as well as narrow outposts and hilly terrain. They covered more than 40 miles in just 48 hours, and I just want to stress that this kind of coverage is pretty decent coverage for an army, even if you just have, say, like a few hundred men, just a few hundred even. This would be difficult to do because there's a whole bunch of logistics that are involved in covering this kind of distance. That's a lot of distance. So something happened to the Syrian army. The Syrian pound went into a free fall. The soldiers and office salaries were a joke, barely $20 a month. There was an economic collapse. Rations were well, there were barely any rations, and things were not looking good. Now, what happened? Let me see here. Financial help, right? Financial help was offered. So things were going bad. These soldiers were suffering. There was a financial collapse. The army was not really doing well. Officers were not doing well. Things were looking down, right? And so out of nowhere appears this app. And the reason why I've been waiting to cover this is because this is kind of the culmination of many different kinds of articles that we talk about on these streams. And all of the methods that we cover, like the social engineering, the software hacks, the lack of security, people falling for tricks, all of this stuff has kind of coalesced into what happened here. So the app offered financial help. By downloading the app, you would assist in certain things. So users would supposedly receive monthly cash transfers of around 400,000 Syrian pounds, which was roughly $40 at the time, sent anonymously via local money transfer companies. Sending small sums across Syria, whether under real or fictitious names, required nothing more than a phone number, and the black market was teeming with intermediaries ready to facilitate such transfers. On the surface, the app appeared to offer a special service for officers. Its first disguise was a humanitarian one, claiming to support the heroes of the Syrian Arab Army through a new initiative, while showcasing photos of real activities from the official Syria Trust for Development website. The second mask was emotional, employing reverent language that praised the soldiers' sacrifices. They give their lives so that Syria may live with pride and dignity. The third was nationalistic and framed the app as a patriotic initiative designed to bolster loyalty. And this mask proved to be the most persuasive. The fourth mask was visual. The app's name, both in English and Arabic, mirrored the official organization exactly. Even the logo was an identical replica of Syria Trust's emblem. Once downloaded, the app opened a simple web interface embedded within the application, which directed users to external websites that didn't display in the app bar. And by the way, people were sharing this app through Telegram, and Telegram people would normally share this stuff with each other, right? So if you're in a Telegram group, you're more likely to trust an application that someone recommends to you because it's kind of like a trusted group. And so you'd open this application, you'd go to one of these sites, it mimicked the official domain of Syria Trust and looked plausible. And then there was a questionnaire that you would fill out. You fill out the questionnaire, you'd fill out some innocent details, full name, wife's name, number of children, place, date of birth. But then the questions quickly escalated into riskier territory. The user's phone number, military rank, and exact service location down to the corps, division, brigade, and battalion. Determining officers' ranks made it possible for the app's operators to identify those in sensitive positions, such as battalion commanders and communications officers, while knowing their exact place of service allowed for the construction of live maps of force deployments. It gave the operators behind the app and the website the ability to chart both strongholds and gaps in the Syrian army's defensive lines. The most crucial point was the combination of the two pieces of information, disclosing that Officer X was stationed at location Y, was tantamount to handing the enemy the army's entire operating manual, especially on fluid fronts like those in Idlib and Sweda. According to an analysis by a Syrian software engineer, what the officers dismissed as a tedious questionnaire was, in reality, a data entry form for military algorithms, turning their phones into live printers that generated highly accurate battlefield maps. The majority of officers often ignored security protocols, the engineer said. I doubt any of them realized that these innocent-looking forms, traps were laid for them with the innocence of a wolf. He added that while the mechanism of espionage was technically old, it remained devastatingly effective, especially given the widespread ignorance of cyber warfare within the Syrian army. And then at the bottom of the application's webpage, another trap lay in wait, an embedded Facebook contact link. This time, the user's social media credentials were siphoned directly to a remote server, quietly stealing access to personal accounts. If the victim somehow escaped the first snare, there was a good chance they would fall into the second. So at this point, they would then deploy further applications because they've already captured the individual behind the person who either clicked the social media link or filled out the form. And so they would offer you further Android applications so that you could do more things under the guise of patriotism and whatnot. And again, it would be distributed through the Telegram channel, and it would just continue to dig into your digital footprint. And as a result, well, you can guess what happens from that point, right? Now you have not just a full map of the Syrian army, its locations, the people, where they're connected, where they're grouped up, where they're going, etc. But now you have a way to watch what these people are sending to each other, including officer information, text messaging through the phones, etc., etc. And this is one of the most understated use cases for the amount of power that software can wield if it's correctly applied. And correctly, the word I use correctly here can mean both for negative and positive consequences. This was a very simple social engineering technique, guised as a, I would say, probably medium level technical effort in terms of spyware. The effort level here was not that high, right? It didn't actually take much to get this going. And you have an entire army that fell prey to it. So when I say things like, we really have to be careful about how we use software and technology because it has serious consequences. I just want you to picture it. It's great to say like, hey, this was the Syrian army, so I guess like whatever, I guess whatever, right? But what if it's an army that protects you? And this is a bit of a what would you say? It's a bit of an extreme scenario, but you can see how these kinds of scenarios can lead to all kinds of negative consequences, because if an entire army can fall prey to it and it can lead to their undoing, then you can bet your bottom dollar that groups that have far less weight on their shoulders also fall prey to these tactics. And that's why I wanted to cover this article in particular.